then how long do the tours need to be? We talked about that. And now we're up to okay, sorry. Okay, so we learned how long do the tours of Tefillin Shal Yad need to be? So we learned this too. Meikar adin sarach cherech sheyaspi b'leilik sheira lahadik zatfilins sibuv echad saviv hazroya. You have to have one sibuv around the zroya, around the arm. You have to be able to go around once. This is l'chatchila at least that. Once around the arm, and then la'achem mikelim teach asiritzua datzbeim tzois, and to bring it down to this middle finger, and to put 3 times around that. That's what it has to be. Once you have, if you have that, you're yoitza. Then the minhag is to have, the 7 times around and so on. And the Ritzur Shal Rosh, we learned, number 1, it should go around the head, and then it should come down a little bit, and the right one should be longer than the left one. But if you can, and the way it's been acceptable that it comes until the tabor, until the stomach, and the right one, the left one comes until the chest, and minhagenu, that it should go down as far as you can, even much lower, but it shouldn't come onto the floor. The right should be a little longer than the left.
So you don't have any other body part to aim at?
No. I mean, you don't have it all the way down to the floor. You make it higher up only so that it shouldn't touch the floor. And you try even so that when you're sitting, sometimes if you have it too long, even if it's not all the way to the floor, if you try to make it somewhere in between so it doesn't, as a rule, get to the floor. Zman b'dikas tefillin. Now we're up to the halachas of when one needs to be b'dikas tefillin, when you need to check the tefillin. So tefillin shehuchzegu b'kashrus pa'amachas. Once the tefillin have been established that they're kosher tefillin, meaning that the sefer wrote it and somebody checked it over. You obey just because the sefer wrote it. You don't assume great sefer, so it's okay. You always need a second pair of eyes to look over it to be sure that the sefer did it properly. Didn't forget a word, didn't mistakenly do something wrong. Well, the computer really only looks for if there's something missing. So it'll catch if it misses a letter, but it won't necessarily catch if a letter is not touching. If in a mem the letters on whatever needs to be touching in a aleph in a shin is different things. If there's a hefsek in a letter, the computer won't necessarily catch that. For that, you need a pair of eyes. And also to be sure that, sometimes it becomes an issue, is a vav, or is it a nun, a final nun, or, things that are similar, but it's not just a question of something missing. So
perhaps have some other companies. Well,
as a rule, a sefer, once upon a time, there were no computers, so a sefer checked it and hopefully caught it. Now, where they have the computers, in addition to the sefer checking it, some of the safrim also have the computer that checks it as well. Not so much so with the film; it's much more so when they check it is with the sefer Torah.
The one who wrote it, you said it doesn't have.
Well, the one who wrote it is not. It's not generally somebody who writes film. The sefer writes it. He gives it to somebody else to look over, before he sells it to you, because it's always a second pair of eyes that might catch something he didn't catch.
Doesn't.
Well, it's not muhsig then with the kashrus. So if you want to be machzik with the kashrus, you should have somebody take a look at it. So
in terms of the computer recognition gets to the extent where the accuracy is similar to a silver, would it be okay? Or
well, what the computer gets is, as a rule, that it counts the letters. There's no letters missing, which is often a problem in a Sefer Torah. You find that they missed a letter is double or something to that effect, and that's the kinds of things that it's sometimes difficult for a Sefer himself to catch, and it's very beneficial to have the computer look for it and then catch it. And that's what we have the benefit of the computer. And again, not all Sofrim have that benefit. Sometimes even a Sefer Torah, when you give a Sefer Torah to check, the Sefer will tell you, I can look it over. And then if you want me to also have a computer look it over, it's an additional whatever. So it's an additional way that on top of the Sefer checking it, it doesn't replace, a computer does not replace a Sefer checking it. You need a pair of eyes. So a computer, as great as it might be, will never replace the Sofrim. Are guaranteed to make a lot of money. They're not going to go out of business. And that's why they don't make a lot of money. If they made a lot of money, it would be worth the while for the computer to be able to catch whatever but the computer doesn't catch that.
But the writing has to be by hand.
The writing must be by hand, correct.
Technically, if the machine got good enough at it, would it be?
No, it has to be written by hand.
I was thinking the checking also has to be by eye.
Well, the checking doesn't have to be by eye. Theoretically, if there's a way that you can check it some other way, but you're absolutely sure of its accuracy, it wouldn't need to be that way. The writing, though, needs to be written that way. Because a person that has whatever intentions need to actually write it. It's for that. Similarly, so the tzitzis need to be put together by a person. Although you can have, in theory, a machine do that, but it needs to be made by a person. That's one of the issues that initially was also the big issue, that the matzahs that were made, machine made. So one of the issues of machine made matzahs is that it has to be made l'shem matzahs mitzvah, for the sake of matzahs mitzvah. And if the machine makes it, the machine doesn't have that in mind. So some wanted to say that although the machine doesn't have it in mind, but when you press the button for the machine, that's the person doing it that has that in mind. So it became an issue. But again, the machine doesn't replace a person. So that's why it's certainly better. Even from that perspective, there are other issues there too. But from the perspective of it's missing the human touch, so it's still not the same, even if you press the button, if it's as opposed to the person actually making the matzahs or the tzitzis or whatever it happens to be. So tefillin she'ochus kashrus pamachas, tefillin that have been established that they are kosher. And they also look from the outside that they're okay. And they weren't soaked in water. It's not that you walked out in the rain and it got soaked in the water and who knows what happened to it. And you use it regularly. You're not just sitting in a closet where you can get whatever happens to it. What's that? Moldy or whatever. So a pair of tefillin that has that chazaka, so they continue to maintain their chazaka that they are kosher. So technically, they don't need to be checked. So in theory, if you have a pair of tefillin that was never checked but continuously used, and there's no reason to assume it's problematic, you don't have to check it. You could, without a problem, make a bracha over them. We don't have to assume that, who knows, maybe one of the letters got erased. Maybe there's a hole in one of the letters and it's a problem. No reason to think that way. So those things can happen, assuming, I can tell you personally, I had a mezuzah I had on my porch, the entrance to my porch, and I had just checked it a year before, or maybe a year and a half before, and I checked it, and I saw that many of the letters were really messed up because of the sun that was beating on it, and it messed it up. So when I replaced it with a special cover that is more protective of it, but I continuously check it because it's out there where it could be affected by the elements. It doesn't, in that case, it's not affected by the rain. There's no water there, but the humidity plus the sun plus whatever. So when you have a mezuzah like that, in spite of the fact that you checked it, you have to assume, I got to check it again. Who knows? Is it still maintaining its kashrus? Similarly, so if you have a tefillin, some people keep an extra pair of tefillin in their car. So if you're doing that, make sure to check it. It's a good idea to keep a pair of tefillin in your car. It's a very good idea to keep a pair of tefillin in the car, so that when you have people that when you're driving and I want to put on tefillin with you, but I don't have a pair of tefillin. If only I had a pair of tefillin. Good idea. Keep a pair of tefillin with you. Obviously, don't keep it where the sun can beat on it, but it's a good idea. But at the same time, make sure to check it regularly to be sure that it's didn't get ruined. It's not a problem. I personally have put on many times with people tefillin, and only because I had the pair of tefillin in my car. So I got an extra pair of tefillin that I keep in my car so that I can always have a pair of tefillin when I'm going, wherever I'm going, to put on tefillin with somebody.
Hot temperatures, cold temperatures, no good.
It's not good. So what again? So what it's not good. So what should you do? It's not that it's not good. It could be a problem. So what you need to do is continuously, regularly check them. You don't have to check them every week, but at least once a year. And again, what we're saying here is if they're not in a problematic situation, keep your tefillin in your house. And it's not on top of you didn't put it on a radiator. Then, okay, you don't have to check it. You don't have to check it every year. So, in spite of the fact that you don't have to check it every year, our custom is that Rebbe has established, and the Rebbe has encouraged us that every year Chodesh Elul is a time to check the Mezuzos. That Mezuzos tefillin. And again, that if you didn't, it's still kosher, but the proper thing to do is to check it during Chodesh Elul. Well, at least once a year they have good business. Actually, what the Rebbe would say often is, when the Rebbe would tell people to check their mezuzahs, the Rebbe would say if they haven't been checked recently. In other words, if you haven't checked it in Chodesh Elul, or you haven't, so if you don't get to do it in Elul, do it the month before, the month after. So people have that opportunity as well. Not everybody does it in Elul, so do it the month after. But in other words, do it at least once a year, and if options being open, do it during the month of Elul. It's a good time. It's a special schus to check up to be sure that you're doing it right, that your tefillin are kosher during the month of Elul. It's a good time for that. But the point of it is, check it once a year. This is provided that everything is okay. But if on the outside the period film looked like there's something wrong with it, or it got wet, all of the Baitcon, you should check them immediately. If they're not used all the time, just on occasion, here, what we're saying is minimally they need to be checked, and that's where it comes that you have to check it twice in 7 years. They need to be checked. But again, our custom is that we check it every Elul.
Why don't they say once every 3.5 years, so somebody doesn't check it twice in the first 3.5 years?
Because we don't want to be that specific every 3.5 years. Twice, so it could be. Well, twice in 7 years gives you the option. It can be, because you could do it the second year and then again the 7th year. But at least within the 7-year period, you check it twice. Okay, that finishes off with Hilchos Tefillin, and now we'll go on to Hilchos Mezuzah. We'll start. We have another minute or two. Zehiras b'mitzvahs mezuzah. Tzarich lehizar ma'od b'mitzvahs mezuzah. One needs to be extremely careful with the mitzvah of mezuzah. But it says regarding the mitzvah of mezuzah, Yarichu Yamav v'yimei banav. You have, as a result of being careful with mezuzah, you are given the bracha of arichas yamim v'shanim for yourself and your family. Commission Amar, as it says specifically regarding mezuzah, leman yirabu yimeichem v'yimei v'nechem. That as a result of having a mezuzah and being careful with this mitzvah, you have arichas yamim. And because a mezuzah shemeres umagana al adori boha, mezuzah protects and watches over the people that live in that home. If you don't have the mezuzah, someone will say mezuzah, you have to make sure to have it wherever you need to have it. It's not sufficient just to have it on the front door. There are many places in the home that need a mezuzah, and we're going to go through the halachas that describe where a mezuzah is necessary. But the interesting thing about the mezuzah, with many mitzvahs, there's a schar, a reward that's given. Particularly with the mitzvah of mezuzah, the Eibishter says that although with other mitzvahs don't do it for the sake of the reward, but here the Torah tells us very clearly, do it so that you be protected. In other words, if a person says, I'm putting a mezuzah on my door so that I be protected, that's fine. The Eibishter says, not a problem. You can do that. You can do it with tzedakah as well. If a person gives tzedakah, manas, sheyichya b'nei, you want to give tzedakah so that somebody should have it for shleima. That too is perfectly acceptable. So there are certain mitzvahs where the Torah tells you, do it for the sake of the reward. And one of them is the mitzvah of mezuzah, and that's why particularly mezuzah, in a time like today, when all of Klal Yisrael need a special shmirah, and especially the Yidden in Eretz Yisrael. And since Kol Yisrael Arevim Zeh Bazeh, we are all connected with one another. So when we do something extra for mezuzah, it doesn't just protect us, and it certainly protects us, but it also protects another Yid in Eretz Yisrael, because we added in the mitzvah. All of Klal Yisrael is more protected. So actually, I saw an interesting miftzah where now people are taking upon themselves somehow to adopt, whether it's a soldier or a family of the hostages, and do mitzvahs in honor of that particular family. And they make, making the special connection. So you send a letter to Yaakov so-and-so that I am doing mitzvahs particularly in honor of you. So you have like a pen pal connection.
You should change that.
How many seconds do we have? So there's that concept that, again, to make a special connection with, because in reality there is a connection. Every time we do a mitzvah, whether it's, again, in this specific time, we cared in our film performance for ourselves and put on film with another Yid, we add in our mezuzah performance in making sure our mezuzahs are on right. We've checked our mezuzahs. It adds in the shmirah, in the protection that Klal Yisrael has. So now more than ever, we should make sure to do it in the right way, in the proper way. And we will continue on Yiftzat Hashem tomorrow. You can hook in even if you're not here. You'll be able to tell us if it works.
Send me the link. I have no idea.
Okay. It's on the, you get the Lubavitch Center email at Erev Shabbos? So it's on it. Yeah. I'll send it to you. Okay. Might have. No? Yaakov? In a couple of days, so you're afraid we're going to hear you too much. Okay. Learn the good things. There's a lot of good things you can learn from.